Hello and welcome to Across the Street to Wooden Park, episode 8. I'm Tony.
And I'm Veronica.
Hi, Mom. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Tony. How about yourself?
Good. Are you ready to party?
I've been ready to party. I was born party. Oh, that's not
You're a
true.
party animal. Yeah, the party
Oh
never stops until you show. Never starts until you show up.
Actually, I think I was more of a dud. But
But this is the topic you came to the table with today. You wanted to talk about parties and just your traditions and customs growing up and how you guys did parties, maybe a little differently than other people did parties.
yeah, basically we brought our culture, our Latino ways of doing parties to this country.
I mean, okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Do you remember parties back in Guatemala when you were 4 years
I
old?
do not.
Okay.
No, I do not.
So what was a typical party for you growing up in Chicago in the 70s, early 70s?
I don't think we really had a typical party. They were all so different, but mainly when we decided to do a party, the family decided to do a party, it was a full-blown party, especially like what really baffles me now is when the family would do a party for a child or for us, it was more of a party, I think, for the family as opposed to the child. Let's say, for instance, when Sandra and I, we were turning 5 or 6 or 7, whatever the case may be. I remember seeing a lot of my parents' friends and their co-workers. And I remember them bringing a little gift, but they also walked in with cases of beer. So it was an all-nighter pretty much. The parties, they would say the parties at 5, people would show up around 7 or 8. So yeah, there were, we did have the piñata, and we did have the kids from the neighborhood. So there was always kids going in and out of the house, but it seems like the party was more focused for the adults.
It was essentially more like a social engagement rather than celebrating little Timmy's 8th birthday, right?
Yeah, like little Lucky or little Patty.
Yeah, I know the characters of our story, but
Right.
it's like if people would imagine like a typical Western American birthday party, there's a clown, there's just a lot of little kids. The parents come and drop them off, and they, maybe
For
they
a couple of hours,
sit
right.
in the kitchen. There's a magic show. There's a big blue or yellow pink birthday cake.
Right,
But even
right.
I remember the parties being like the way you describe them when I was young. It was just filled with all of these people who I didn't know or care about that you decided to invite to the party. It was your
Okay.
coworkers and it was your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't
Okay,
mind so
you got
much.
me.
Maybe I didn't mind so much because they gave me presents and stuff, but these weren't the people on my guest list.
You didn't have a guest list.
Oh, thanks.
Um,
I'm sure I had friends who I would have liked to
you
be at my party.
well, you had your friends, but like you said, it was more of a social gathering, more of a social event. And yes, we initially, and we do take this time to acknowledge you, and we are extremely grateful to celebrate your birthday. And we always say gracias a Dios, thank God, another wonderful year, and let's celebrate Tony's birthday. And
For the
but
record, this is
little
the
by
first time I've heard any of this. This is all spin. This is all her covering her tracks. This is all her making up for 30 years of having the parties that she wanted. I just want to put that out there. It's no, it's not true. I remember half the time the cake being like a tres leches cake or some other kind of cake for adults, which I wanted no part of. I wanted Spider-Man cake, chocolate.
Right, but we were going to have a lot of guests, so not everybody eats chocolate cake. So we have to be mindful of everybody.
That's true.
Yes,
I had to
yes.
be so grateful for them to come to my party, which is really for my mom. Um, I mean, maybe I overlooked many of the of much of that because you get more presents out of it. Hopefully, did you get a lot of presents at your birthday parties when you were young?
I did not. That's because my birthday is in December.
Oh yeah,
So being a
kind of unlucky.
December, yes, yes, being a December birthday, they clumped it up with Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And and another I don't want to say misfortune, but what was always ironic was that people would ask me, when's your birthday? And I would say December 7th. Oh, Pearl Harbor. That's the first thing that they would tell me here in the States.
Oh,
In Guatemala, when I went back, they would say, ¿Cuándo es tu cumpleaños? When is your birthday? I say, December 7th. El día del diablo, the day of the devil. So I feel like I got cheated out of my birthday.
yeah. If we need to feel bad for anyone on December 7th, it's you. Poor unfortunate you.
This was when I was younger, Tony.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like that was always the first thing until this day still. When I say December 7th, oh, Pearl Harbor. And I'm
Ah,
like, yes.
yeah.
I mean,
So
I
I
feel
see. Maybe
very,
you're living vicariously through your children's parties, and that's why you get. It's a chance for you to invite your friends and get the cake you would like. Uh, I mean, maybe even they could bring another present for you when it's mine or my sister's birthday. That would be
um,
nice.
well, no, Tony, that's not the case.
Hmm.
But going back to the traditional
Well, what
way,
you brought up the beer, and it's funny because I remember conversations about this is my child's party. I don't want alcohol. Why do I remember hearing sometimes people making these arguments? Were there people in our family? Were there people in other families?
um, I don't think it was our family because we always had alcohol.
Hmm.
And our parties lasted until 2, 3 in the morning at
Yeah, the kids are
times.
already asleep.
And the police would come sometimes, and it wasn't always a noise disturbance, but a little too much alcohol,
Hmm.
and people get a little too happy,
Yeah.
So we share affection, we show affection,
Hmm.
Um, but I think this, I think we're very passionate people.
Okay.
and and we're very social, very passionate, what Latinos generally are, that. So, and especially the women in our family were
Hmm.
very, we're very what would be the
That's
word I'm
exactly
looking?
as I would put it. Very sigh. Yeah, very
No, but no, I mean it in a good way,
Oh,
Tony.
absolutely, in the best possible way.
I mean, we're very, like, yeah, we're gonna have fun and we're gonna party all night and
Well,
we're
let's
gonna
talk about what
eat.
happens at the party and the food and the eating. What's the typical spread at these parties? It's not really usually
Well, it's not
hot
pizza.
dogs or
It's not
pizza,
no. It's not Little Caesars pizza or Oscar Mayer hot dogs.
which I would have preferred. What was it actually?
It was usually a big pot of white rice, and don't forget the black beans,
Mm-hmm.
and carne asada, skirt steak,
Mm-hmm.
and guacamole.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let me see. It was mainly like tostadas. Tostadas are like
Okay,
fried
good.
tortillas,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put a little bit of guacamole on top and drizzle a little cheese, Chihuahua cheese, and little, garnish,
I like how
the
you
spread
sneak a
was
recipe
usually
into every episode, which is good.
the spread was usually very simple, not complicated food.
Hmm.
You know, we didn't
Set out
slave
on a
in the
table
kitchen.
and
Yes,
come and
and you
serve
just
yourself.
right. We didn't spend like 2-3 days preparing a menu. This was done probably the morning of,
Hmm.
and usually either family helped to prepare or they bought food already prepared.
Hmm.
You know, but there was always plenty of food and plenty to drink and it was always a good time. It was always a good time.
Now, had you ever gone to when you were young, like another child's birthday, maybe a little Timmy or a little Kevin or a little
I did.
and did they have a different kind of party than
Yes, and it was so different.
in which way? How in a good
It
way, in a
wasn't
bad
it,
way?
it wasn't exciting,
Really?
Yes, it wasn't I mean it was different, but it wasn't what I was used to. It wasn't what we traditionally were used to,
Mm.
because it was mainly like classmates, or the person's cousins or neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and basically I was kids. Every now and then you had 2 or 3 adults, but it wasn't really like a whole house full of people. You didn't have the family who brought their neighbors or,
Yeah.
or, or extended family.
And okay, well, what were the activities at your party? You mentioned earlier the piñata, which is, am I mistaken, or kind of basically Mexican?
Well, actually, piñatas are Spanish. They're from Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, they are from Spain. However, they're very common in Mexico, but I think they're pretty much traditional all over Latin America.
Okay, what kind of piñatas did you have at the time?
I
Like a
think it
John
was
Travolta piñata or a...
no, it was the traditional either donkey or the star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we didn't. I don't remember. Maybe there was Barbie. Barbie, I never got a Barbie, Tony, until about like 3 years ago. Can you believe that? I never got a Barbie. Never got it for my birthday or Christmas.
Is that amazing, or is it amazing the fact that someone gave you a Barbie 3 years ago?
No, I bought my own Barbie.
Okay.
Nobody ever gave me a Barbie.
This is the pity party episode, not just the birthday party
I
episode.
I never got a
Is
Barbie,
that
but
something you had asked for kind of every year or hoped for?
I always hoped for Barbie. I had the knockoff Barbies, the plastic ones where the arms don't move and the legs don't move. Like they're real stiff.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I never had a real Barbie. I did get a doll. It was called Darcy, but it wasn't Barbie.
Darcy.
Darcy, and I think I was like maybe like 8 or 9, but she wasn't Barbie.
Do you remember
You
any
know.
presents or gifts that stood out from this time?
Um, my Cupid doll. I have a Cupid doll that I received from my father and my grandmother, and I think I got her like 40 years ago.
And that was a birthday gift?
That was a birthday gift, yes, and I still have her to this day. And she's a huge doll. She's about 2 feet tall, and I don't know how I still have her, but she's
Well,
still with me.
that's because she's alive and evil and follows us around every time we move and
She's
secretly planning
she's
to kill me.
Chucky's mistress. I'm just kidding.
I'm glad. You're just kidding, okay? I'm glad you're entertaining yourself on this show at the very least.
She's as big as Chucky, though.
Okay, so everything fits and lines up then. Oh dear.
um,
Did you have any other Was there any other traditions or activities around the birthday besides like the piñata, where pin the tail
No,
on the donkey, hide and
no
seek?
pin the tail. No. Pretty much, the piñata was the main event.
Mhm.
But throughout the party, kids ran in and out of the house, running through people and dropping things that were on tables or bumping into other kids. Somebody always got hurt.
A bunch of dumb
Somebody
kids,
else.
it sounds like. You make them.
Well, we had to keep ourselves busy. We had to, find a way to entertain ourselves. So we were always running all over the house, and they weren't paying attention to us.
Well,
So
okay, so let's fast forward to the big birthdays, right? Typically in the West, that's 16 for girls, sweet 16. But in the Latin community, it's 15,
right,
right? Quinceanera. Did
quinceañera.
did you celebrate those in a big way?
Um, I my sister had a cotillion. She had a quinceañera. I did not.
Your older sister.
Right, right. Sandra had a quinceañera. I did not have
Why didn't you have
one.
one?
Um, because I had the option to go to Hawaii. When my aunt was in the Marines, she was
Mm-hmm.
stationed out there, and my parents asked me if I wanted to go visit her and stay with her for a while, or did I want to party? So I went out there
Okay.
for 6 months.
Did you was it a difficult decision? Did you really want to have that party, or did you regret not having it?
No, I don't have any regrets. I don't. It, I guess because I saw how much work it went into it.
Well, tell us
Um,
about that. How was
well, a
you as
cotillion,
cotillion?
traditionally a cotillion consists of 14 of your closest friends and family. Uh, 14 girls and 14 boys make up
Their
your
party.
cotillion party, right?
That's a lot of
And
people.
that's a lot of people because each person brings their whole family to this cotillion. So you think you have 14 girls, 14 boys, and each one has a whole family and their friends and their neighbors coming to this party. So I remember my sister's cotillion, it was in a hall. It was standing room only, a lot of liquor and a lot of people. And it was a lot of work. And I remember my parents, um, it took a lot of planning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very expensive as well.
It sounds like that would be expensive. Is that something
It
that they just
it's
kind
more
of had to
expensive, I
do?
think, than a wedding.
I mean,
It's very traditional in the Latino community because I think it's a coming of age for
yeah.
a young lady. So um, I'm glad Julie didn't do this. We just went to church and had a little
I
dinner
mean,
at a
you
restaurant.
had a fairly sizable party for her. I mean,
It was nice. It was the family and a few friends,
like
but
40
she
or
didn't
50
have
people there.
right. But she didn't have the traditional, the 14 girls and the 14 guys,
Well, that way in 20 years, she could
representing.
record her own podcast where she complains that her mom didn't give her a 400-person wedding size cotillion.
Yeah, I don't think she would do that though, because she's too nice.
Mm-hmm. Um, I remember other people's cotillions a couple of times, and just maybe because I was a little boy at the time, but they always seemed like the worst things in the world.
Yeah, the magnitude of putting something like this together really blows my mind. Two of my cousins had cotillions, and I'm glad to say they were not huge. They were nice size, and it seems like those two cotillions were planned very well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying my sister's wasn't, but it was just my sister's cotillion was just way, way too big. And there was one cotillion that one of our neighbors, when we lived here on Kildare, asked me to be a godmother. I was godmother of shoes.
Huh?
So basically, if you're a godmother, you're a sponsor. You pay for whatever they ask you to sponsor. And I was sponsor of shoes. So I remember going to this cotillion, and it was so full. It was so full that when I found a chair, I didn't get up. Even if I had to go to the bathroom, I couldn't get up because I didn't want to lose my chair. But I remember at one point I wanted to go to a bar and get a drink. So I got up and I picked up my chair and I walked to the bar with my chair. I'm sure I look like an idiot, but I literally walked to the bar with my chair. And I walked back to the table with my chair. I wish somebody would have taped this. It was so crazy. That's how many people were at this cotillion.
This is what makes me sad that Julie missed out on seeing these events happen at her own cotillion. I'm sure she would have cherished that moment. So, you were the sponsor of shoes, so like different godmothers to kind of put the whole thing together or something like.
Right. So different godparents or godmothers, what have you. Different people will pay for the event. Some people will pay for the hall. Others will pay for the music. Others will pay for the church, the gown, the makeup, the jewelry. So whatever is needed to put this event together, that's what you're sponsoring. But not everybody puts together an event this way. My parents paid for it. Different people choose to do it differently, you know.
So what I'm thinking is we need to find another girl to sponsor this time, sponsor her dress, and see if we can put a little like a sticker or a patch on it across the street to woodenpark.com and get some more traffic to our site and our show.
And this way we can get some free advertising. How's that sound?
You're going to pay for it, so it's not free. That's what I'm saying here. That's what I'm talking about. Are you following me? Are we having a conversation together here?
We are having a conversation, Tony. Well, I'm not
Okay.
going to sponsor a dress. Do you know how much a dress costs?
How much are these cotillion dresses?
Between 500 to 1,000. So I will stick to shoes, okay?
Oh.
So they probably won't see my logo, but I will stick to shoes or to, I don't know what else is cheap. Nothing there is cheap.
What about, do you remember when you were younger, your parents' birthdays? Were they any different? What kind of affairs were those? Did they celebrate them?
No, not really. Not really. From what I remember, it was mainly it was mainly making time to celebrate the children's birthdays because you're grateful that the child is another birthday, you know. So you're looking at me as strange. Because initially you start out planning a child's birthday. However, it turned out to be an adult's party, you know. I mean, I did have some family members that did make parties for their kids, and you know, they did make it only a kids party, like when you do Chuck E. Cheese or McDonald's, where it's only for kids and the parents sit on the side, you know. I think we had a few of those.
Do people have McDonald's parties anymore? I can only remember one or two places where you could actually have a birthday at McDonald's at some point.
Right.
I wonder how few and far between those are nationally.
Right. I think what they still do is Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
And I know one of my cousins, his son's birthday's coming up. He's going to be one, baby Kai. And they're actually going to have his party at, it's not like a Chuck E. Cheese, but yeah, I guess it is sort of like a Chuck E. Cheese. No, it's more like a little gym. And
don't give it away, Mom. You're going to blow up the spot and then everyone's going to show up to his birthday party.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, my God. They'll never forgive me, right?
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, here come all of Luki's guests and friends.
So his party is going to be more kid-centric.
Yes. yes, it's going to be more for kids, which is really nice, because it's focused on the kids.
I agree with that. I think growing up, I thought like, why is it this way? But why do I also imagine, or I could just visualize adults saying, "Where is the food? Where is the beer?" Like,
Because they still do that. And Julie did have one really nice kid party when she turned 5. She had puppeteers.
uh-huh.
There was so many kids there, and she had puppeteers, and she had a Barbie birthday cake, and the food. I think I got like 25 Happy Meals.
Yeah.
So this birthday was
Catering for McDonald's. I remember picking up the box.
yes, but no. What I'm trying to say is that this was a kid's birthday.
Yeah.
But yes, still in the background, we still had the grown-up food because my family, we were not gonna.
If you didn't serve that stuff, they would be upset.
Right. They'll be like, nosotros no comemos papitas. We don't eat fries. And we do eat fries, but not for a party, ¿Dónde están las tostadas con frijoles, Get the tostadas with beans out. So you pretty much have to be ready to accommodate everybody, because it's not an insult, but it's not okay to make a party and not have food for the grown-ups, even if it's a kids party. You have to be very mindful of the grown-ups, because pretty much a kid will eat whatever, even though it's his party or her party.
That's the attitude. You know what? Screw them. They should just be happy that we're doing this.
Yeah, I can honestly remember Sandra had cool parties,
Sounds a little bitter there, Mom. She gets the cotillion, she gets the cool parties. Did she get a Barbie?
I don't think so.
And with that, we'll leave you to go and party some more on your own. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Across the Street to Woodland Park. You could visit the site acrossthestreet2woodlandpark.com and find all the episodes there. You can click play on your phone or in your browser and listen to any episode. It's just like YouTube. And share the link with your friends if you like what you hear. If you want to subscribe to the show, open up your iTunes podcast app, search Woodland Park. You'll see the logo of the cute little girl. Click subscribe, and you'll never miss an episode. If you want to hear more of me, you can check out my show, The Juan and Yoko Show, also in iTunes or at juanandyoko.com, my other podcast with my fiance about life in Japan. And thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope all our listeners are enjoying the show just as much as we are sharing all these stories.
Yeah. I'm having a lot of fun because I'm recording everything you're doing for posterity and future generations. This is mostly for evidence so that people will believe me that my mother was this way, that I'm not exaggerating.
That's a good thing, Tony. You know how fortunate and blessed.
I mean it. I'm being so 100% positive right now.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.